All right, Shalom Yashalala, Shema Yashalala, Yahweh Alahayna, Yahweh Kad, Wahabda At Yahweh Alahayaka, Bakal Lababka, Wabakal Napaska, Wabakal Ma'adka, Yabaraka Kam Yahweh, Bashem Hamashiach Yahushai. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our power, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your power with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Yahweh bless you all. In the name of Yahweh Shai Hamashiach. All right, so this is the first day of the week, and we want to tell everybody welcome to another installment and episode of
It's About Time.
Welcome to another installment and lesson and conference call for
It's About Time.
Welcome to another installment and lesson about time called
It's About Time.
Okay, all praise to Yahweh Bashem Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. I really and sincerely and deeply apologize for coming into your homes so late or into your job so late past the regular schedule that we supposed to, get started on. We had a very intense call, trying to rehearse some matters with Banya Yashalala, Masharai Yashalala. For our people and to develop and to grow together as a nation and get on one accord and to get all on the same page. All right. So we're talking about time, and we're talking about months, and we're talking about things like how do we figure out, when the month is starting, all right? How do we figure out when we're supposed to begin the month, all right? So these are things that we want to, kind of try to go over, dealing with moons. And we're dealing with the moons, of course, we're dealing with movements, all right? So we know that the Hebrew word for moon is Kadash. Chaadash, and we write it, in the Hebrew like this. And I'm going to start to show you again, and we're going to go into the word moon. I'm going to show you again, how the word moon tells you that it begins from the darkness. All right, because we know we're dealing with movement, and we know we're dealing with time. All right, and we know we're dealing with something. Now, what's the first concept that we see in Genesis chapter 1 and 1, which is the beginning of our time as we know it? The first concept of time that we see from Genesis 1 and 1 is what? What's the first concept of time we see from Genesis 1 and 1? Before that. Before the beginning. What is it? Tell me exactly what it is. Okay, Ba. What does this word say? So this word says Bara Asha. Bara Asha. This first part of the word, Ba, means what? Okay, but that's what it is. Okay, but how does that word translate when we're making it into a word with this letter? Huh? In. Very good. So when we began in the beginning with the Bible, it starts out in the beginning. And what do you call in? What kind of word is in? A preposition, right? It's called a preposition. The opposite of in is what? The opposite of in is out. So already when we first begin the first word of the Bible, we see the first word of the Bible is what? A preposition, which gives us in as opposed to out. What do you call words like in and out? These are opposites. And a bigger word for opposites will be what? Counterparts, okay. And a more basic word for counterparts will be what? contrast. So anytime we're dealing with time, we're dealing with concepts of in something and out of something. What are you always in? What are you always in? You're always in time. You're always in a year. You're always in a minute. You're always in a second. You're always in a month. All right. It's the only thing that exists that you're always in, whether you're in it consciously or unconsciously, or participating or not participating. All right. Which brings to another deeper point that you've always existed as an element from the beginning of Genesis 1 and 1. The stuff that's in your body is the stuff that was used to make Adam. And it's always been around. It's not new. You're not new. This flesh, what you have, is not new. It's a different manifestation of what was already existing from Genesis 1 and 1. In the beginning, Elohim created. What's the first verse of the Bible? Somebody say it together with me in Hebrew. What's the first verse? No, tell me in Ibadia. What's the first verse of the scriptures in Ibadia? Bada Ashiath, Bada Ah, Elohim, Ah, Ha, Shemayim, Wa'ath, Ha, Anatzazah. Very first verse. And what do we have? What's the very next word after this? Bada Ashiath, what? Ba, Bada Ah. What does Bada Ah mean? What does Bada Ah mean? What does Bada Ah mean? Created, right. So this is created. And where am I going with this? You're going to see. So everything in heaven and earth was created on the Genesis 1 and 1. After that, all these different elements got brought together. So you always existed in time from the beginning. It's just the different elements and atoms in your body weren't put together yet. But the parts that make up you were created in Genesis 1 and 1. Everybody understand that? So those parts, the Most High made Adam from what? From the ground. And does the Bible ever talk about the Most High making dirt? No. It says he caused everything to move all together in one place. Where did it come from? From Genesis 1 and 1. So as we get into time, we want to understand the fact that time is a contrast, but it always exists. Yesterday, tomorrow, now. Now is gone. Anytime you say now, it disappears. Now. Do it now. When I say come here and now, I'm really saying come to me in the next 1 or 2 seconds. You come to me right now. It took 4 seconds for him to get over this way. So I'm not saying now. Now comes and goes, okay? So the point that we're making is this. When we're dealing with the Bible, we're dealing with contrast, in and out. So we're seeing contrast from the very beginning of creation. Now you may say, what does that have to do with the moon? Well, I'm gonna tell you. The moon is a contrast to what? The sun. The sun rules what? The day. And the moon rules what? The night. All right. So the sun is the ruler when it's bright outside, right? And the moon is the ruler when it's what? You see that? These are what? These are contrasts. These are opposites. These are counterpoints. These are counterpoints and these are opposites. Everybody see that? And that's the what? What's the fourth pillar of wisdom? Huh? Yasharyam. Yasharyam is the fourth pillar of wisdom, which in English we call what? We call it equity in English. So equity is our fourth pillar of wisdom. So when the Most High made everything at the beginning, he had everything balanced out. Darkness and light. In and what? And out. The sun and the moon. Day and night. And that's why, even though everything is a day, a period of time that exists and includes light and dark, he still contrasts that. Because remember, when light was made, it was blended into the darkness. Everybody remember that, right? When light was made, it was blended into the darkness. It didn't just exist by itself. Then the Most High said he divided between the light and the darkness. So when we're looking at the word for new moon, and I'm going to show you now how you begin, remember, everything is happening within a day, right? Did anything ever happen that didn't happen in a day? La'ah. So now, if you know that the day is existing from what's the last phase of evening is called al-ta. Il-ta. That's the last phase of the evening. Okay? Il-ta. All right, you want to say I-L-T-A-H. I-L, all right, T-A-H in the Hebrew. Il-ta. Right now, when I'm writing, a lot of times, when I'm teaching and studying, I might forget some of this information. I might remember some of it. So you got to write it down. Because you might ask me, I'll be like, I don't know. Sometimes, you know, if I'm in the spirit, something just come in my head and I'll forget it later on. But then I'll remember if I really sit back and think about it. You understand what I'm saying? So the last part is called this. Il-ta is the last part. And what comes before il-ta is the phase when the shadows start to grow, which is called what? How do you say soul in Hebrew? Napash, right? Well, this is the opposite. Nashap. All right. That's when you have an object, and that object starts to cast a shadow, you know, onto the ground. All right. Or this might be a tree. Let's say this is a tree. Bam. That's a cactus. Let's call it a cactus. You see that? That's the cactus. And this is the nashap. The nashap is when it starts to cast a shadow. All right. Now we're going backwards. Now the beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning. What do I mean by that? The same way the day begins is the same way the day what? The same way it ends. And what does the day look like? You always would get up and look out here. What does the day look like when the day is starting? Describe the day when it starts. Somebody tell me. What does it look like when the day starts, huh? What does it look like? What does the sky look like? It's bright, it's pinkish. All right. What does it look like when the day is ending? All right. So when the sun is right here, when the sun is coming up, it looks like this, right? And when the sun is going down, doesn't it look like this too? It looks the same when it's going up, when it's coming down. If it's coming up, it's going to get more light. If it's going down, it's going to get what? More dark. But this phase, when the sun is right here, this level, all right, it starts to go down, all right, and then it starts to go down. That phase is called what? Tizalalu. All right, we know in English that to be dawn and dusk. All right, you with me? Everybody with me so far? Okay, now we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna Ratazala, you there? Okay, what was the question that you had, Ak?
One of the questions that I had, because I know sometimes I was actually talking with Karate about this. What is the best way to tell when the sun is fully set sometimes you can have other lights that kind of throw you off, and it'd be a little bit harder to tell. So what should I be looking for?
Okay, the question is, what do you look for when the sun is fully set? Okay.
Right. As opposed to like, well, yeah, you just go ahead. That's good.
Okay, so now over here in the east, the sun is going up. Okay, over here in the west, all right, the sun is going down. Okay, as the sun goes from the east to the west, it travels toward the south from our perspective. So it starts from the east, rises up, and then it sets in the west. All right. As it goes from the east to the west, we know that, you got the shadow moving, right? From the east, the shadow is coming up. All right. The sun's on the east, so it's casting the shadows. So the shadow's going from, east to the west. And then when it gets in the middle of the sky, there's no shadow. Then when it starts to move toward the west, the shadow starts to go from the west to the east. So as we see the sun coming up, all right, the shadow goes like this, all right, from the east to the west. But then once it gets here, it starts to go kind of more in the westerly direction, right? The shadow starts to go the opposite way, like that. Now, when it's in the middle of the sky, all right, what they call noon, high noon, the sun is hot and it's blazing and it's not giving no shadow. So now, Ratazallah, as the sun starts to go down, let me get this out the way. As the sun starts to go down, you only have one measuring stick to check if the sun is in a position where its light is no longer influencing, over the horizon. And the only way you could do that is to look toward the east. Now, I know that's like a Masonic book. This is not a Masonic reference, okay? There's a Masonic book called Look to the East, but I'm not talking about that. Marcus Garvey actually said, look to the east for our king to rise up. He's talking about the leaders in Yahushua. He wasn't talking about Haile Selassie, and he said that too. He said, I'm not talking about Haile Selassie. So anyway, if you go outside and you can see the east and the west, once you see basically that the bottom of the horizon and the top of the horizon, if you can see the full horizon, are the same shade of darkness, or if you look to the east and then look to the west, and it's the same level of darkness, what you call that in Hebrew is the Al-Ta. Is the Al-Ta. The Al-Ta is the last phase of the Iraq, which is the evening. The evening has three phases: 1, 2, 3. Once the evening fully comes in, now you have Layla. Okay, Layla, which is now the nighttime. So we know at nighttime, what happens at night with the light? What happens to the light at the night from the sun? It disappears. There's no more light. East, west, south, north is no more light. The light is gone. Why? Because now you've gone from Tazalal, which means in this case, which means the dusk. You're going from Tazalal, and then you go to Al-Ta, which is that covering. See the word right there, Al-Ta? Al means upon. All right, Al-Ta means upon. This ta is like a basket or something that's encircled and covered. And then this ha'ah means to behold. There's nothing, you can't look, it's covered. It's upon something. The darkness is upon everything. So you can't see the light anymore coming from below the horizon. And that's how you know you fully enter into a new day. Because in Genesis 1 and 5, it says the evening and the morning were the first day. So if the evening and morning were the first day, that means that the first day started with the evening. And what is the aspect of the evening that tells us that we're starting a new day? Is going to be the darkness. You see that? The same way as he began, because in the first we had that darkness. So then he created the light. And then he said the evening and the morning were the first day. What part of the evening? The latter, long part of the evening, which is called the night, which lasts until the sun starts to come up again. So the way you know you began a new day and that the day is over, the sun is fully set, as you look toward the west, you should see no light whatsoever. You look toward the east, a lot of times on most days, the east and the west would be the same amount of light would be coming from both directions. All right. So now you can also go to, I'm gonna erase all of this now. All right. You can also go to, we're gonna get back to month. You can also go to a website. You have the same levels of sunset that I just gave is the same one that the scientists give, Ratazah Allah. All right, you have 3. You have C, N, A. You have the civil twilight, and then you have nautical, and then you have astronomical. Okay, this one is that's one when it gets darkest outside. So once that darkness fully hits, you look all around, it's darkness, meaning that even if the moon is out, the moon may be bright. But when you look at the horizon, it's the same all around. It's the same all around. There's no darkness. There's no light coming from below the horizon. Any light is coming from the top, which is going to be, the moon, which is going to be from the moon. So that's the only light you're going to see. You're not going to see any light coming from below the horizon of the sun. Because once the sun fully sets, it's down here. And there's no more light, up here. Right? There's no more light up here. No more light bulb. Okay, there's no more brightness over the horizon. All right. But you can go to several websites. One is called timeanddate.com. Timeanddate.com. And they'll tell you about the 3 different levels of the sunset. So just check that website out, man. Ratazah Allah, timeanddate.com, and it'll tell you exactly, what's going on. And also, Ratazah Allah, if you got a computer near you, and I know you're on a call, but if you've got a computer near you, you can actually go to Banya Yashar Allah on YouTube, and you can follow the live broadcast for It's About Time right there also. Okay? So does that answer your question, Ratazah Allah?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was already thinking. I just wanted to confirm.
Okay. So that darkness is going to be the most important part. That darkness is going to be the most important part of yeah, I mean, I feel, as a brother on here said, Yehuda said that time doesn't exist. I can agree with him to a degree. The Most High makes reference to time. What does exist is movement. What does exist in movement, and movement as it relates to us is pertaining to our movement on an infinite line from one point when we started to breathe, and that line is going to go on. That line is going to go on. If we inherit eternal life, it's never going to end. But the same word for now is the same root word for time, which is aitha. Okay, which is aitha. All right. So it's your eye. All right, that's your eye. And you marking it. X marks the spot. So time is relative Time is relative to you noticing and marking something. But when you notice and mark something, what's the first word? It has to be contrasted. It has to be compared. And that's when you get into your one day, or Shabbai, 7, a week, and Kadash, for a month and things of that nature. Right. So I can agree with that to a point. Jeremiah, Yahoo, I can agree with that to a point. But time doesn't exist. But I would say I thought exists. You can't say I thought doesn't exist, because that's what we see the Most High talking about in the scriptures. Is I thought. Now time is just a made up word, but I thought is what we have, inside the scriptures. All right. So now getting back to, and I encourage, all of you, when you go on the YouTube, if you got YouTube and Facebook, that's good, because the YouTube has it's not as much of a delay in the transmission. But Facebook, we have a delay of about maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes. So what you're hearing me say now on Facebook, I actually said it like a minute and a half or 2 minutes ago, and you're just not hearing it. All right. Like right now, where I am, if I look at the clock, Facebook, it says it's 8:45 here. So when you hear me say this on Facebook, look at your clock and see if it says 8:45. If it doesn't say 8:45, then you can see how much time has elapsed between me actually saying these words and them getting to you. All right.
I do got one more question when you got time.
Oh yeah, come on. It's about time, Mark.
All right, so when you at different times, though, like let's say somebody is in, I don't know, Japan, and it's, I guess, daylight over there, and maybe somewhere over here in the States is dark. How do you make the contrast or the differences in the day with those the parameters being different?
Okay.
How do you tell when the day ends and starts, when you got the sun up in one place and then the moon present in another?
Okay. Of course, I mean, most of us know. Most of us know. I think I'm in the U.S. All right. Okay. Got the Yarak and the Shamash. Got the Yarak and the Shamash. Okay. Sun and the moon. Okay. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon, what? By night. So the sun rules the day, the moon rules the night. When the Most High made time, and the sun ruled the day and the moon ruled the night, all right, they don't exist together within the same area. They're both doing their job. They're both doing their job. Once the sun goes out of play, because remember, we're moving. All right, we're moving. Okay. All of the celestial bodies are moving. So we count that time from everything, the days, and that's why the days keep going. The days keep going. All right. I got some background noise. That you, Nathaniel, with the background noise? Sound like the mute came off. Let me see if that's him. Yeah, that's him. I muted him. All right. So we're going around. So the day exists relative to night, relative to the to your experience of light and dark. The day exists the day exists from the evening and the morning. The evening and the morning. That's why, like you said, in Japan, when it's like morning time, over here, it might be evening. Or I can speak for like India, because India is a 12-hour difference. So when it's morning in India, and then I'm on like the opposite side of the world over here and let's say I'm in Mexico, but let's say for the sake of understanding, let's say the closest U.S. city to me, major U.S. city, is what? San Diego. So when it's morning in India, it's evening over here in San Diego. All right, it's evening over here in the San Diego area. So as the earth is moving, I didn't get that light yet. All right, the earth is moving, or the light comes around to me later, and then we reverse. And then they get the evening, and then I'm gonna get the morning. Okay, now with that being the case, that's for days. It's consistent. The only time we really merge is when we know that there's an event that's happening in the sky, which is called, okay, this is the sun. This is the sun. Now the sun, or the Shamash, and this is the moon. Okay, that's the moon. So sun, then you have the moon. So now once the sun and the moon, when they're moving, all right, they're moving. Once they get in front of each other, bam, that's what you call the new moon. The light is decreased. Give me Ecclesiastes chapter 43, and let me get verse 6. You take this right here. Ecclesiastes chapter 43, verse 6. And read this 43, and let's read verse 7. Read that.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 43, verse 7.
Uh-huh.
From the moon is the sign of feast.
So the moon tells us when we have to keep our feast days. So the importance of the moon is so that we know what days we're going to keep as a feast to Yahweh. That's the importance of the moon. Read.
A light that decreases.
A light which decreases, go ahead.
In her perfection.
In her perfection. The light decreases in the moon because she's lining up with the sun, and it blocks out the moon's light. And the moon appears to be black. It's still there, it appears to be black. And then as it moves away from the sun, being in front of the sun, that's when you get like that little crescent on the left, on the right hand side. Because now it's moving away. Okay, it's moving away. All right. And that's another way how you know that the moon is smaller than the sun. Because if it was, if you have two circles right in front of each other, let's take two circles and put them, right in front of each other and see what kind of, you're going to get a different shape. All right. Anyway, that's a whole different theory. Let's get back to the moon. So as we move in, Ratazah Allah, it's only it's mainly going into the sun, the moon, that we're looking at. Okay, when are we going to start this month? Okay. Now remember, we started in Jerusalem. As we go away from Jerusalem, then as we go away from Jerusalem, then we move further back in time. As we go west, as we go from Jerusalem east, we move further ahead in time. It's almost like if you're in California, and when you go to California, and then suddenly you're in mountain time, you're an hour ahead. Then suddenly you're in Chicago, you're 2 hours ahead. And suddenly you're in Ohio and New York, you're 3 hours ahead. All right. Then you go to Nova Scotia, you're going to be another hour ahead, 4 hours ahead. Well, if you now start in the Central Time Zone, if you go in Chicago, you go back an hour, all right, and you go another hour. Now you're in back on the West Coast again. You go forward an hour, you in Ohio. You see that? So it's going forward and back in time depending on where you are. So time is relative to us around two things: around the Sabbath and around the new moons. So even though we're counting our own days, we're experiencing those days at different points in time, because the darkness of the day beginning is beginning first in the Eastern Hemisphere, and then when it spins around, they get the daytime, and then we get the nighttime, and then we get the same thing that they got. So that's how it works in terms of the time in Japan, and then the time over in America. But remember now, anytime you're dealing with time someplace else, you only count that time simultaneously if it's an event that you have to observe simultaneously, like the new moon. All right. So if the new moon came in at 5 a.m., let's say new moon came in at 5 a.m., or let's say the new moon comes in at 6 a.m. in Israel. All right, 6 a.m. in Israel is going to be 12 midnight on the East Coast. And it's going to be like 9 o'clock at night on the West Coast. All right. So when Sabbath starts in the new moon happens in Israel at 6 a.m., they have to begin observing it from that previous sunset. In the same way on the East Coast, we would have to begin observing it from the previous sunset. And same way from California, we would have to begin observing it from that previous sunset. So it's all about where you are when it comes to that point in time when the new moon happens. But with the days, it's a constant cycle of rotation and movement every 7 days. And everybody experiences those 7 days at the same intervals relative to each other. In other words, when the Sabbath starts in New York, let's say the sun goes down at 7:30 in New York. Well, over here, it's going to be 4:30. But they're going to start, it's no different than that, Ratazallah. The same difference you see from the East Coast to the West Coast. All right, because when it's 6 p.m. or when it's 9 p.m. or let's say when it's 8 p.m. on the East Coast, it's going to be like 5 p.m. All right, on the West Coast. So you get that 3-hour difference. So when the Sabbath starts at, let's say the sun goes down 7:30 in New York. Well, over here, the sun goes down 7:30, all right, in New York. When you go toward the west, it's only 4:30, right? So let's say, in LA, it's going to be 4:30, but in New York, it's going to be 7:30, all right? So now they're going to begin the Shabbat, all right? They're going to begin the Sabbath, okay? They're going to begin the Sabbath at 7:30. Now, I'm 3 hours behind them. My sunset may be like 7:30 also, for example. So I'm going to begin my Sabbath 3 days after them. So now the next day, when the Sabbath ends at 7:31, for example, Sabbath ends at 7:31, but when it's 7:31 over there, it's going to be 4:31 here. So they're going to end the Sabbath now. And the first day is going to start when the sun goes down. Well, I got 3 hours left now until my Sabbath is over too. So when the sun goes down for me, it's going to be what? It's going to be 7:30 for me over here. Now in New York, it's going to be what? It's going to be 10:31. All right, so you have to know what time zone you're dealing with. Now, generally speaking, we would like to say, oh, everything's going to be based off of Israel time. That would be nice and beautiful. But it's not. It's based off of Greenwich time, the Greenwich Meridian, which is in England. They call it Zulu time. They call it the Greenwich Meridian. and they call it universal time, UT. All right. So does that answer the question, Isaiah? I mean, Razala?
Yeah, so basically it's just based off of, relative where you were. I want to kind of understand, like, what was the principle behind that, like, because, somebody was in this time zone, as opposed to, like you said, New York and California. It's a 3-hour gap, so they sunset would be different in California than New York. So what you said makes sense.
Right, because let's say if you're running around a track, all right, and that track, let's say you got a 400-meter track, all right. If you at the front, if you 100 meters in front of me, and we run at the same pace, we're gonna cross the 200-meter mark at different times, but it's still relative. You know what I'm saying? It's because now the Earth is moving, the sun is moving, the moon, everything is moving, all right. But the Earth and the sun are moving at a pretty consistent pace. That's why we got the same measurement of a day is roughly 24 hours. It's the moon that moves at a different pace. It goes speeds up and then it slows down. That's why sometimes we have 29 days and sometimes we have 30 days. We never have 28 days. Sometimes we have 20. Now we may have 28 days on a clock, but on sunset to sunset, it's always 29 days or 30 days. All right. So yeah, it's relative to where we are because everything is moving. The East Coast, the Eastern Hemisphere is always ahead of us. All right. So when the Earth is spinning and the Earth is moving, if at this point right here you get sunlight, well, we are 12 hours behind them. So if they get sunset over here, if they get sunlight over here, let's say 6 a.m. on the Sabbath, okay? 6 a.m. on Sabbath, for us is going to be what time? It's going to be 6 p.m. All right? It's going to be 6 p.m. going back in time. All right? So 6 p.m. Sabbath morning, and it's going to be 6 p.m. Sabbath start. So it's going to be dark. So we're not going to get to the 6 a.m. point until what? 12 hours later. So us in India, for example, on the West Coast over here, we always 12 hours apart. 12 hours and 30 minutes to be exact. And sometime in daylight saving time, might be 13 hours apart. So that's a big thing. Okay, so now let's get back to the movement. All right, because we want to deal real quick with the moon and movements. Now this first letter show you how the new moon is dark. Okay, what does this look like? Anybody? What does that look like? Looks like a ladder. Okay, and where is the ladder going to be placed? Where's the ladder going to be placed? Where you put it first? On the ground. Very good. You put it on the ground. So the foundation of the ladder is what? Is the ground, right? And what does the ground, when you go below the ground where the ladder is at, even on the surface of the ground, is it light or dark? It's dark. When the Most High made everything, did it start with light or dark? When the Most High said the day is going to start, did it start with light or dark? The Yawam, evening and morning, right? It's dark, right? So now what we do, we move up here. As we go in the dark, up here we got what? We got, it doesn't matter if we got the moon or the sun. we're always going to have light at some point when we go up, right? But at no point when we go down are we going to have the dark. So now this is the darkness, and I described this also in one of the lessons. This is the darkness, but it represents different what? What does these look like? Look over here, right over here. What is that? It's a shelf. So what does this look like? Look like a shelf. And you put stuff here, you put it here, you put it here, you put it here. All right? So when you were a little kid, you got a shelf you can reach right here. But when you were a big kid and when you were a big man, you don't want stuff down here. You want to put it up here now where you can reach it. You want to go, you don't want to bend down every time you got to get something. So now you say, I'm going to put this here. Put it on the top of the shelf. All right? So if somebody says, hey, who put this up here? You're not going to ask the babies. You're going to ask the big people that can reach up there. Well, I'll put it up there because it's higher. So when you go from this small to high, what does that represent? This represents progression. It represents this right here. See that? Maturity. So Scripture says a light that decreases in its perfection. Meaning as the sun goes up, the moon has to go up in light, and then it comes right back down in brightness and begins over again. That's the first letter. All right, so that's the movement of the moon. So that maturity, that's the first letter. The chayat is the first letter. What's the second letter? Is dalat. Right, so this is dalat. I'm going to do it in English or Latin letters. I'm going to write it up here. So dalat. So this dalat, we notice that it has what? 1, 2, 3 sides. So it's stable, it's sturdy, but it can what? It can move like a triangle, right? But this also represents what? Like that. And then go out too. Going in and out. Division. Separation. Phases. Doors. So now, as you go through these different levels here, this time that you have to go through this phase. That's when you have the dark and then the crescent. All right, you got the dark and then you have the crescent. And then after the crescent, you might have the half moon. Right? So you got the half. And then you got the what? You got the full. And then from the full, it goes back down to another half. And then from that half, it goes back down to what? It goes back down to, from half, it goes back down to a dark moon. You see that? So that's the cycle. So that door represents the different chambers of the light being exposed. You know, it's like 4 different. You know, you got a full moon, or you got a black moon, then you have a half moon. Then from the half moon, you got the full moon. The half moon is also called the first quarter moon, all right? Because technically the full moon is a half moon, all right? Technically, because you're seeing the whole half of the moon lit up, all right? So let's say you got the black moon, which is the beginning. Then you have the half moon. Then you have the full moon. Then you have a half moon again. And then you go back down to the black moon again. All right? But at the beginning and the end of that, you have the crescent on the left and right side. After the month has started, you're going to have a crescent on your left side. And then on your right side, they're going to call that a waning, a waxing crescent. Waxing because you're going to wax on, wax off. It's bright. And then as the month is ending, you're going to have a crescent on your left side, a white crescent on your left side, And they call that a waning crescent. Why? Because the light is getting smaller. It's waning. Okay, it's whining or waning like a child. Whining was crying, whining. It's getting small, but it's called waning. The light is getting smaller. All right. So these are the phases that we're going through. Now, da. What's the last phase of this? It's called the what? What's the last one? The sha, or we call it what? Shin, right? Now, do we want to call this letter Shayan? What does Shayan mean? Shayan means piss, P. You don't want to call this letter Shayan. You want to call it Shin. Called Shin or Shine. Shin or Shine. So this represents what? What does this letter represent? A tooth. And a tooth is what? And this is basic, but it's complex. A tooth works with other teeth, right? A tooth works with other teeth. You'll see a baby try to take a bite out of something with just 2 teeth in the top. It don't work out that good. You need a tooth at the bottom to put that pressure on it. So already we see that this letter, the Shayan, the Shin, means nothing by itself. So already we see that this thing is working together with other elements. That's the earth and that's the sun working together with the moon and the constellations. All right, so that's one thing. Second thing we see from this letter as it relates to the word for moon, the second thing we want to say is that if it means a tooth, you're processing something in there. Something getting processed, something getting consumed, all right? So when you chew something, it goes through your whole system and cycle. And then you start the process all over again. So it goes up and down, up and down. It's like you chew, up and down, up and down. It's got to travel through your whole system now. Well, in order for it to go from here back to here, all right, go to another month, to go to another cycle, it has to go through what? You got to go through the 12 constellations. So that's the movement that it has to make. Every month, the moon moves through a constellation. And I think one of the problems that people face when they're making these calendars is that they're not taking into consideration what constellation the month is going to be in. They just count by 12s, count by 12s, count by 12s, and that's it. Just count by 12s. But you're not really counting what constellation these different months are beginning. And that's why now you have brothers that are keeping the Passover. They're going to try to keep the Passover in March. In March. Because they didn't watch the constellation. Right now, let me have the calendar book right here. Right? And you'll see me making reference to this book a lot. This book has the holy days that were given and supposed to be used by Masharai Yasha'Allah. You know? But so now what we're gonna do. Okay, now, as of March 5th, we're gonna be in the 13th month, not the first month. I'm gonna show you what's gonna happen, and for the sake of understanding, please forgive me. I'm gonna write the date, then I'm gonna write the Gentile name of the month, and then I'm gonna write the year. So it's gonna be like 3 MAR 19. We'll do it like that. Okay. So now I'm gonna just do the months. And I'm gonna show you the mistake that's being made right now by a lot of people that haven't counted all the months. Why? Because they're not looking at the whole cycle. They're not looking at the whole process. And their calendar is about to be off, and they're gonna try to pull a fast one on you. So let me show you right now, right here. Matter of fact, I'm gonna start with February, because some of y'all trying to keep Passover in February. All right. So let's go right here. All right. So first, we're gonna write 3 Feb 19. Then we're going to write 5 March 19. Right? Now, these are just Gentile names. But once again, you have to have the comparison because we're not using the same Hebrew calendar. People got different times when they begin the month. So we're going to use something that's consistent for all of us in captivity, which is the names that our conquerors use for these months. So forgive that disrespect to our calendar, but it's necessary so we can all be on the same page with a standard counting source. All right. Now we're going to say for April 19. Okay. And then we're going to say 3 May 19. Okay. And then we're going to say 2 June 19. And then we're going to say 1 July 19. And next month that we have after that one is going to be the 31st of July 19. Right? And then after that, we're going to have the 29th of August 19. Then we have the 27th of September 19. All right. And then after that, we're going to have the 27th of October 2019. All right. 27th of October 2019. All right. Now I'm getting to a point, and you're going to see my point. All right. Now, when we get over here, after October, we got the 25th of November 2019. All right, so we got room for maybe, let's do December over here. So we got the 25th of December 2019. Now let's go over to 2020. All right. So now from 2000, you got the 23rd of January 2020. All right. And then you have the 22nd of February 2020. And then you have the 23rd of March 2020. All right. Now this is what we at Banya Yasharallah, Mashba Yasharallah have as the New Year's. As the New Year. So what we'll do, let's count together. And let's see when Passover is. Okay? Let's start from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're in the 5th month now. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. So now this little mark right here means we're in the new year. This little mark right here means we're in the new year. All right? So now, some of you brothers belong to camps and organizations and bodies where the people that make the calendar probably need to have a little more sense of eldership instruction from some of us elders that know how to do the time and know how to do the calendars. Some of you just started out, you have a lot of zeal, and you very, very, sincere. But your sincerity and your zeal should also come with humility. Humility to ask someone with more experience in these types of matters how to do something, so you make a mistake that could be very seriously spiritually detrimental to another brother that has entrusted you with his soul, entrusted you with respect for you to teach him and guide him, all right, accurately. And you don't want to violate that trust. You don't want to take it lightly that a person has entrusted you to show them the things of Yahweh. And I think a lot of brothers maybe get caught up in, sometimes get caught up in the fact that I'm a leader and I got these men under me. And I'm going to tell them what to do, and I'm going to see what I can do, to my benefit, and I'm going to teach them some stuff about the Bible. As opposed to Yahweh has entrusted me, these men have entrusted me with their education, with knowledge that they need, that I must impart upon them respectfully and, accurately and with humility. Once we get back to doing things like that, it's easy to ask your brother for help. It's easy to say, you know what, I was wrong. I didn't know that. I appreciate you telling me. But as long as you have a lot of pride, you puffed up, you elevate yourself above your men, you can do no wrong. Nobody can tell you nothing. You confrontational. It's your way, or the highway. And that's not the spirit that we're dealing with coming out of this captivity. We're dealing with a spirit where everybody has something to bring to the table. If you as a camp or you as a body think that your teacher, your leader, has the truth 100%, and they're the only one and everything they say is accurate, then you're mistaken. Everybody doesn't teach everything 100% accurate. When it comes to this time, the Most High has given me a gift. Humbly, the Most High blessed me and showed me how to do things relative to time, using variables that we need to use. And I show this and teach this to other brothers. But I can't teach it to everybody all the time. I can't see something that's wrong with everybody's calendar and then say, brother, this is wrong, and call you up, this is wrong. But I'm working with the elder that's over the calendar for Masharah Yasha'Allah, the elder that's over Torah and law enforcement, which deals with the holy days of Masharah Yasha'Allah. And we work together to assemble and proofread the calendar for several years now, before there was Masharah Yasha'Allah. Accurately. You have sometimes you may count a day wrong, not because your methodology is wrong, but you may be distracted and get a day wrong because you may be counted the wrong way because you were, not thinking, or you might have been late. Some things I've done late, I made honest mistakes because it was late. We're not talking about those types of mistakes. We're talking about mistakes in doctrine and mistakes in process of how to do things to arrive at this date and to arrive at your years. So now what I'm going to do, I know some of you brothers out there are about to try to keep the Passover in February. So I'm going to show you what's going to happen. You try to keep Passover in February, right? I'm going to show you what's going to happen. You say February is the first month of the year. February 3rd is when the new year came in. That's what some brothers say by mistake because they just don't know better, because they've not learned the right way and they've not learned the right way because they haven't humbled themselves to learn from a person that knows how to do it. So we're going to start with February 3rd as the so-called New Year that people try to keep as a New Year. So let's count, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, you brothers that came out of GMS, Tahar made this same mistake. Tahar made this same exact mistake. Tahar made the same exact mistake. You starting in April and in February as the New Year, then you're gonna get down to 12. The 12th month is in December. Now you're gonna say what? We're gonna start the New Year in January. That Gregorian calendar that you're talking about so much, guess what? Now you're following it. Because you don't want to humble yourself and admit your mistake and learn. So now you're going to start doing Passover in January. Because that's going to be the 12th month. And if you say, well, it's the 13th month. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, it's the 13th month, so we got to keep the Passover in February now, 22nd. Okay, well, what's your methodology? Why? You just, oh, because it's February is too early? Well, February don't exist. It's the winter time that you're looking at, not just the month. What constellation is this happening in? What constellation is this happening in? Now, let's go to you brothers that are trying to observe Passover in March. Let's count for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You see now, you're in the 12th month right here. And now you're saying you're going to keep February 22nd as the New Year. And you know that's off too. That's off too. They keep it Passover when? March 7th? So one thing the Most High said, cold season and hot season. How close is this date to the last frost? The last frost after harvest. Because you can't plant if you haven't had that last frost yet. What's going to happen is some of that frost is going to get on your little crop seedlings or whatever. The ice is going to tear up them leaves. The ice is going to get on the leaves. It's going to be heavy on the leaves. It's going to mess up your crops. Now, collard greens, you make it do that the second time around. I don't think you did it the first time around when you still got a seedling. I'm not sure. All right. So you can't do that. So now what you may say is, okay, well, that's the 12th. That's the first month, but that's too early. So we're going to make this a 13th month, and then we're going to do the New Year right here. Okay, well, check this out. So if you can do it right here, how are you going to be so many months off still in the winter time? This is still in the winter. And then when you do your Passover, okay, you're in the wrong constellation. See, these are all things that have to be taught. These are all things that the spirit of wisdom, Kakma, showed me. You know, she showed these things to me from the scriptures. And then showed me from using farmers' almanacs. Using the farmer's almanac, and then showed me using the ephemeris. And then showed me using the constellations, how all of that works together to get the beautiful tapestry that we call time. If you don't do that, you're going to be off. Just this right here is just a small example. Now, let's say where we at. April. We say we're going to have 13 months this year. Why? Because right here, we're still going to be in the 12th constellation. Here, the sun moves into the first constellation. When the Most High said in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, you know, the Most High said lights in the firmament, all right, of the sky, the heavens. He said, let them be for signs and seasons, days and years. Well, what constellation are you using for your days and your years? See, there's only one way. So the way that we have to use for our days and years, it can't be the sun and it can't be the moon. Why? Because those things move. Those things are relative. You can argue and debate about that. But one thing we can't argue and debate about are the constellations. Why? Because everything happens within the constellation. So if you got the constellation, you got the sun, and you got the moon, and you got the earth, all moving within these constellations. They all moving within these constellations. Everything's happening within the constellations. This is the circle of stars that Solomon talks about in Ecclesiasticus chapter 13, believe verse 3. So once you look at this, and you see how this is set up, now we understand that it's a deeper level than what we've been taught. And it's a deeper methodology than we've been taught. So we have to understand that methodology. We have to understand how the Most High got everything set up. Genesis chapter 1, verse 14 is not talking about the sun and the moon. When we go to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 13, verse 3, Solomon gives us two distinct sets of lights. He gives us a circle of stars, and then he gives us the sun, the moon, and the lights in heaven. Give us two distinct sets. Circle of stars are by itself. This is a circle of stars. This is Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. Now we go into chapter 1, verse 16. He made the sun, he made the moon, he made the stars. I don't know everything, and you don't know everything. But if your calendar is not following this cycle right here, and if you're not using the constellations to calculate your years, you're wrong. And your calendar is not solid. And that's why when you hear or introduce yourself to a new doctrine, or you hear something different about the year, you say, you know what? Let me take that into consideration. But you're still not there. Why? Because the Most High said that the constellations, right, the sun and the moon and the stars are separate. All right, give me Wisdom of Solomon chapter 13, verse 3. And then you give me Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, and then verse 16. Okay, let me get Wisdom of Solomon chapter 1, chapter 13, verse 3. So it's all about movement, brothers and sisters. So now most of you right now, a lot of you are saying, okay, Pastor was going to be here. Not Pastor, but the new year is going to be here. All right. Now, if we're looking at Israel time and Greenwich Meridian, by each of those standards, Jerusalem time, Greenwich Meridian, East Coast time, and Pacific time, the new year is going to start on April 4th at sunset with the darkness, the dark moon, because that's the moon that the Most High, that's the cycle of time that the Most High gave us from the beginning was darkness. The day begins with the darkness. So now when we have the next, big leap, which is the moon, it begins with the darkness. This is the contrast that we learn from the very first word of the Bible, which is in, which is the opposite of out, which is a relative term, and it's a comparative term, and it's a contrasting term. And as Adiyasha Mathathi Ramnatar said, it's we say counterpoint or counterbalance. It's a counterpart. You see? So when we look at all of this, there's no way we can say, well, the Most High changed the rules. Now let's read the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 40, chapter 13. Let's read verse 3. Read that.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, verse 3.
Actually, you know what? Go to verse 2.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, verse 2.
Mm-hmm.
But deemed either fire.
They deemed either fire or air. Go ahead.
Or the circle of stars.
Or the what?
The circle of stars.
So the Most High is showing us that there's some stars in the sky. And these stars are arranged in a circle. They're arranged in a circle. Now, if I draw a circle, what can be inside that circle? Anything. What can be outside the circle? Anything. But what makes up the circle? What makes up the circle? The lines. All right, the curved lines make up the circle. Anything outside the circle can exist. Anything within the circle can exist. But the circle itself is defined. So the world has known about this circle of stars for years, but they use it for witchcraft. They call it the zodiac. But that's not the way that the Most High designed it. He designed it for, for signs and seasons and days and years. So now the Bible said, now let's take this right here, right now. So we see one thing so far. We saw, what is a circle of what?
Of the stars.
Circle of stars. One. We call that number one. Now keep reading. Circle of stars, and go ahead.
Or the violent water.
Or the violent waters.
Or the lights of heaven.
Or the what?
The lights of heaven.
You see that? Why is he calling the circle of stars? And then he goes from circle of stars to what?
Lights of heaven.
No, circle of stars, then what comes after?
Or the violent water.
So he says the stars, and then he says the waters, and then what else?
Or the lights of heaven.
Then he says what? The lights of heaven. So he says the what? Lights of heaven. Now, are stars lights? Do they give light? So why is he making a distinction between the circle of stars and the lights of heaven? Because these two things exist in two different categories. The circle of stars is one creation, and then the lights of heaven is another creation, another purpose. It doesn't have the same purpose of creation. Now we're going to show that. We're going to read from the Stone Edition Chumash, English Hebrew Bible. We're going to read Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. All right, read.
Chaim said, let there be luminaries in the firmament.
So luminaries. So luminaries, go ahead.
In the firmament of heaven, to separate between the day and the night.
To separate between the day and night. So let there be things that give light that separate the day and the night. Now, do we have any mention of the sun being made yet? No. Any mention of the moon being created yet? No. So these luminaries that separate the day and the night, go ahead.
And they shall serve as signs.
As what?
As signs.
They shall serve as signs, go ahead.
And for festivals.
And for seasons, which is mawa'idiyam in the Hebrew, all right? So we'll put feast, because that's the way we see the word translated in Leviticus 20:1. When it says feast, 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 it says seasons in Genesis 1:14, but it's the same word. All right, go ahead.
And for days and years.
So days and years. Days and what?
And years.
And years. Now, when you go through the circle of the stars, you get that first constellation, you're in the beginning of the year. When you get to the sixth constellation, you halfway through the year. You see that? So for days, seasons, for signs, seasons, days, and years. For signs, feasts, days, and years. All right? All right, let's go to the next part. Let's go to verse. Keep reading. Keep reading.
And they shall serve as luminaries in the firmament of heaven to shine upon the earth.
So they just shine on the earth. Go ahead.
And it was so.
And what?
And it was so.
So that circle of stars, those luminaries in the heavens, is done. It was so. They were created. Period. They are there. This is before the sun. before the other stars and before the moon. These things are existing now. The luminaries, which are the constellations or the circle of stars. Read that part again. Was deemed what?
But deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circle of the stars.
The circle of the stars.
Or the violent water or the lights of heaven.
Now he's talking about the lights of heaven. But wait a minute. This says lights of heaven also, Parazah. Well, we're going to go to verse 16 in Genesis 1, and we're going to organize that. Go ahead, read.
And Elohim made two great luminaries.
Now he's making two more great luminaries. What's the Hebrew word for that? Oh, yeah, about Elohim, Shanyam, what's it say? It says Ma. It said like Ma award. Verse 16 should look like this. Like that, or is it? Let me see. No, you looking down here? No, right here, 16. Right, yeah, and right here. Wa'isha Elohim Ach Shanya Ha Ma'araf. Hagadalium Ach Ma'awar. Right? Ma'awar. So Ma'awar means that which gives light. It's not called light itself. It's called that which gives light. Ma'awar. All right. So he made, read that again. He made what?
And Elohim made two great luminaries.
So two great luminaries. Go ahead.
The greater luminary to dominate the day.
The one to dominate the day. Go ahead.
And the lesser luminary to dominate the night.
The lesser one to dominate the what? The night. See that? Sun and the moon. Go ahead.
And the stars.
And the what?
The stars.
So Kawakabium. All right. Made the stars. So here we see clearly in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14 and 15, that we have two separate focal points of these lights. The first one is the luminaries for day and night, for signs, festivals, days, and years. Signs, season, days, and years in Genesis 1, verse 14. The next one is once we go into Genesis chapter 1, verse 16, the Most High in verse 14 said it was good, right? It was so, right? But that's it. 15, he said it was so. So that's done. All right, that's done now. All right, it's done. So now in verse 16, it says what? The greater light rule the day, less light to rule the night. And he made what? The stars also. So you see, we have a buffer verse. We have 14, a buffer verse, then we have 15. And the same thing in Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, verse 2. We have the circle of stars, then we have a buffer word, which is the waters, right? And then we have the lights of heaven. See, these circular stars is what you have to use to calculate your year. If you don't use the circular stars, you're going to be throwing everybody off, and you're going to be saying we got 13 months this year, or we got 12 months this year, and you won't understand why. Because even if you're using the, even if you said, well, we're going to use the equinox and the earth, and we're going to say when the equinox happens, okay, that's going to be the new year. Okay, if you do that, the Bible don't say do that. The Bible say use the circle of stars. The Bible says the same thing you use to determine the new year is the same thing you got to use to determine your signs, your years, your feast, and your days. And that's all revolving around these constellations. All right, the Aries, first constellation, the new moon happens in that. All right, for the year. And then Passover happens when the sun is in that constellation. Every year, every year. And the sun and the moon line up, between those two constellations, or that constellation. Right? So that's what we're looking at. And if you don't know that and apply that to your methodology, then you're going to be leading people astray. And there's going to be a lot of blood on your hands. So you got to humble yourself and learn. Point blank. So now let's go again. These people that's doing the Passover, in April, go on point with it. But why? How did you get that date? And if I say let them be for signs, okay, now we got what they call the signs. And then let them be for signs and seasons. Let them be for signs and seasons, which are the feasts. These constellations, the new moon happens within here, and then you celebrate the feast according to the movement of the sun and the moon within the constellation. So that's the feast. And let them be for days. Well, the Most High said that when you got the appearance of the sun or the appearance of the stars at night, the scriptures talk about let them divide the day from the night. So once we got them that light in the sky, and we see them stars in the sky clearly, that's what we call what? The last stage of the day, which is what? Who knows that word? Anybody remember? Ayel what? Ayel Ta. Right, very good. So you got Ayel Ta, which means what? Which means the covering. So the Ayel Ta happens. The covering. Ayel Ta. So once the Ayel Ta happens, now the light, the sun is gone. So now it's not affecting what's happening in the sky. So now you look in the sky after the Ayel Ta happens, and now you say, okay, yeah, I can see the stars now. So that's what they say, divide the days. And then the years. Years. So now the years begins here, ends here with the constellations. Now Solomon tells you that with the years, these moons and what position in the constellations they happen and how they relate to the sun and the moon, he tells you that it's going to change. It's going to have some fluctuation. Go to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 7. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 7. And give me the verse when he says, when Solomon says about the circuits of years. Read that. All right. Okay, come. Read verse 18 and 19.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 18 and 19. The beginning, ending, and midst of the times, the alterations of the turning of the sun, and the change of seasons.
So the alteration, the turning of the sun, he knew that. Read.
The circuits of years.
The what?
The circuits of years.
The circuits of years. So the years move in a circuit. How do the years move in the circuit? Does it mean like, oh, it's so many days, that's it? This is something that Solomon had to sit down and be taught by wisdom. So what is the circle of years talking about? Circuit of years. All right, I'm going to tell you. And I went over this, I believe it was that last week? We talked about, and we talked about this, and we used a particular year as the example. Okay, we used the year as the example. So I'm gonna pull it up, and I'm gonna show you, what it's talking about. Okay, show you what it's talking about. Okay, so now, and I put this inside the group that we have, it's about time, Hebrew time. Well, not it's about time, but Hebrew time. So now, let me take this again. All right, so now this is what you do. If you take any date, let's say 2014. In 2014, you say 2033. Then from there, you say 2052. Now, this is what happens. Right, this is what's going to happen. All right, now, 14 plus 20 is what? 14 plus 19 is what? 14 plus 19 is what? 33. 33 plus 19 is what? 33, 46. That's 13. 13 is 46. So 33 plus 19 is what? Hmm?
52.
All right, so 52. The water. So 33 plus 19, 52. So now, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? This is what Solomon is talking about when he says the circuits of years. Because we know we got two different kinds of years, right? We have a lunar year, just the sun and the moon lining up, the new moon. Then we have a solar year, which is the sun moving slow through all constellations and then coming back around where it started from. Then we have the moon moving fast through everything. So the sun passed through each constellation one time. And then it starts over. The moon passed through each constellation like 12 times in a year. It starts on the first constellation, goes through all of them, and then past the first one, then goes to the second constellation, and then pass through all of them again. Every year, every month, 29, 30 days, the moon is passing through all these constellations. So you have two bodies. So the sun is going like, the moon is going like this. The moon is going like this, and the sun is going like this. A lot slower. Okay. So the moon is traveling fast. It's going slow. Now, and I did
charge before
using
it.
Give me the other charger over. Hurry up. Excuse me, I gotta get it. Okay, so now I want to keep you in the game right here. Okay, so now what happens is this. I'm gonna erase this. Hope everybody got this. If you don't, give me a call and I'll talk you through it again. Call me on Messenger or something. Let me know, hey, I'm gonna call you on this day at this time. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna erase all of this off now. And I'm doing this to let you know that, and I'm letting you know that the spirit of wisdom gave me these gifts. And it gave me these gifts to share with people that want these gifts. It's a spiritual gift. And it compares spiritual things to spiritual. If you're carnal, you don't want the gift, or you can't really understand and appreciate the gift. If you're spiritual, you can see the gift and respect that it came from the Most High, and you can apply it to what you're doing, and you can learn also. You can learn from me as I've learned from others, as I've learned from the spirit of wisdom. And then you can learn from the spirit of wisdom. And that's the beauty of wisdom. You can take what I'm giving you and pray and fast with it, and the Most High will show you something even more great. And then you can come back and teach me. So it ain't just about one person teaching one person. It's about all of us teaching each other. Nobody has no monopoly on the knowledge once the Most High starts to share it with people. But you got to humble yourself to learn first. And that's why a lot of you brothers are going into false doctrine, because you haven't humbled yourself to learn for real from the Holy Spirit and the spirit of wisdom. You're learning from men that are learning from other things that's not of the Most High. All I'm showing you now, I'm showing you a spiritual credibility to explain what Solomon is saying, because other people are doing calendars and doing, time and the moons and the movements and the solstices and the equinoxes, but they can't comprehend what Solomon is talking about when he's talking about time. They can't explain when you go into Ecclesiastes 43 and Wisdom of Solomon 13 about time. Take those words and put them back into Wisdom of Solomon chapter 7, verse 18 and verse 19. And what is it talking about? You see that? So that's what we're doing now. So what I'm going to show you is something. Remember, the sun is moving at a certain pace. The moon is moving at a much faster pace. So what happens is that in 2014, all right, the sun and the moon were in a certain position, all right, in the constellation, all right, certain position in the constellation around the same time period. They were together, all right. Now, that's the lunar. When you look on, when you say a Gregorian year, Gregorian calendar is nothing but a solar calendar. That's all it is. It's a calendar that's counting just natural days and evenings without the moon. That's all it is. Nothing evil about it or nothing like that. It's just counting 365 days, sometimes 366, and that's what it does. It's not nothing evil about that calendar. It's accurately scientific. All right, now, if you want to say a quarter day, you can do that. Probably should have done that instead of trying to add one extra day, every 4 years, right? Maybe. Who am I though? So anyway, if you look on, okay, I'm gonna give you an example of my son. All right, I could use my daughter right here. She was born in 2014. I'm gonna use this 2014 as an example first, and then I'm gonna explain it to you, walking you through a real model about how. Now, 2014, it was a certain lunar event, all right? You had like a new moon on that day, okay? And now when you go into, what day it happened on a Gentile calendar, okay, let's say March 30th, okay? Let's say so-called March 30th at a certain time. So you say, let's say March 30, 2014, March 30. The sun and the moon were together in Aries, the first constellation, I think at about maybe about 15 degrees. I think they were about 15 degrees, between 10 and 11 degrees. 10 and 11, between 10 and 12 degrees. All right, they were between 10 and 12 degrees within the constellation, the first constellation. Well, this never happens except every 19 years. So you take 2014 and you add 19 years to it. What you have is 2033. And in 2033, you have the same thing happening. The sun and the moon are together in Aries between 10 and the 12 10 and 12 degrees on the same day. And you never see that except every 19 years. So every 19 years, the cycle of the sun and the solar days, the cycle of the days, all right, and the cycle of the days and the cycle of the moon and the new moon, they line up again. They align every 19 cycles, every 19 years. So you have this one, and add 19, it's going to happen again. So you add 19, it's going to happen again. Now I'm going to show you an example. Okay, I'm going to show you a perfect example. All right, perfect example. On the 6th of April 6th, right? 1996. 1996. 6th of April, we had Passover that year. That was after the split. We had Passover that year at St. Mark's Ballroom. All right. We had Passover at St. Mark's Ballroom. And then my son, I had a son born this year, Kahan. And when he was born, April 6th that year, at sunset was the 5th day of Passover. Huh? Yeah, I said the 5th day. 5th day of Passover, April 6th, right? So the 5th day of Passover was April 6th. Well, if you look at every year, Passover didn't fall on that time with this date of the month until 19 years later, which is going to be 19, not 19, but 2015. Right? Right, 2015. So in 2015, on the 6th of April, that day was the 5th day of Passover. So that cycle happens every 19 years. And like I said, when I see these things and I understand them from the spirit of Yahweh Bashem, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, not through no understanding of my own. I didn't sit back and get a calculator and a computer and figure this all out. The Most High literally showed me what to look for and where to look. So I don't give myself no credit. I didn't do this. The Most High, through the spirit of wisdom, showed it to me. And then I tested it, and then I saw that it was true. So what I'm showing you is that when Solomon talked about the circuits of years, this is one of the things that he's talking about, that the days counting on a certain 365-day, 366-day cycle, no matter if it's a leap year or not, these days are going to line up every 19 years. So when the new year happened that year, okay, when the new year happened that year is the same time the new year happened in 2015. If you look up the new moon in March 2015 and look up New Year for March 1996, you're going to get something maybe a day or two, a day apart, but you have to get the time. The time it happened is going to show you that it was on the same Hebrew day, just like the Passover was on the 5th day. Now, if you keep going from here, which he's not about to be he's not about to be 38 or 37 no time soon. You know what I'm saying? He's 19 right here, right? And then 19 plus 3 is 22. which means this year is going for 23. When? It's still going to be the 5th day of Passover. All right, 5th day of Passover. You know, but these 2 days are not always going to align. These 2 days, this day stays the same. For us, this day changes because it's not going by the moon. So when Solomon talks about, read verse 19 again.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 19. The circuits of years and the positions of stars.
So he's letting you know that the circuits of years and the positioning of the stars, that them things are running together. The position of the stars and the years are running together. And that's why when you look at the circle of the stars in the constellations from Genesis 1 and 14, the stars are in the same position. The moon and the sun are in the same position within the same constellation every 19 years. They coincide with the day count of that year, and with the Hebrew count of that Hebrew year, they coincide. So what I'm showing you is that, you know, this is part of my spiritual resume that the Most High, you know, gave me as a gift to show me this is how you do this, Parazan. This is what you do. And this is how you prove what you're saying. I'm proving what I'm saying. So any aspect of dealing with the year and everything like that, you know, we can go into the scriptures and we can look at, you know, we can do everything out and we can see what's what. So when I tell you that the new year starts on April 4th, I'm telling you because that's when it is. That's what the Most High revealed and showed to me through his grace and mercy by giving me the tools necessary to know when he wants to be worshiped on the holy days that he gave us in Leviticus chapter 23. All right? And you can't just pick up a book and say, you know, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. That's not a mystery. The Most High, he said this to his glory. You know, it's the Most High, it's his glory to conceal a matter, and it's the honor of a king to search it out. It's the honor of a king to search it out. How are we going to search everything out? We got all these books that now they discover that a spoon feeding you proper doctrine or whatever. All right, what's hidden about that? You see that? So now these are the mysteries that are inside the scriptures that you have to do a test for. You say, okay, I'm gonna try to do this and see what happens. And the Most High show you, well, nah, this is what you do. All right. So if you have a farmer, you know that even when the spring equinox comes, if you go out and try to plant something after the spring equinox, the frost might hit it. Right? So you brothers that say in February is when we celebrate Passover, this is when you're going to end your year, and this is when you're going to start it in January 23rd. So you're going off. You brothers are saying, okay, March is going to be the Passover. This is when you're going to begin your new year. You're going to be celebrating Passover in the wintertime still, and you going off. You brothers are saying that this is the new year, April 4th, you all right. But you brothers are saying, no, it's going to be when the light comes in the moon. That's wrong. That ain't the Most High's pattern. That ain't what the Most High gave us from creation. He gave us the darkness to begin counting phases of time, you know, that are progressive. And that's what we got to do. So that's dealing with the movement. We move. All of this is happening inside the constellations. We're just putting a Gentile month because you're not going to understand it. We put the Hebrew month. And we say this one in Hebrew month 1, month 2, but we didn't put no Gentile. You're like, yo, what date is that going to be on the Gentile calendar? Because we're in captivity. So that's the only reason we putting these Gentile days beside here, because you got to know what's going to be in your society, on your cell phone, what date is going to be on your cell phone or on your computer. Why? And it's a shame we got to do that, but we have to. Why? Because we don't even agree when a month starts. We used to agree, but then we go off and say, well, I got some new understanding, so I'm going to leave you and where you at, and I'm going to move to a higher level. But sometimes moving to a higher level moves us closer to darkness and away from light. Not all the time. I'm just saying sometimes. Right? So the new year begins on April 4th, not February 3rd, not March 5th. April 4th. Not April 5th, not April 6th. April 4th. All right. So now, when we do It's About Time next week, what we're probably going to go into is when we deal with Passover. All right. And dealing with the 14th day and the 15th day and how to count the Passover from April 4th. So next time we're going to go into the Passover, and we're going to go into this new moon, and then we count from this new moon to here, and hopefully we're going to look at what time does the new moon happen. I know this one right here is going to be 4:50 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means that new moon on the 5th, which means that new moon started on the 4th at sunset. All right, so if anybody have any more any more comments or questions or whatever, go ahead and let's do this. Scroll me down a little bit, because Yahweh wants us to understand these things. All right, Yahweh wants us to understand these things. All right. All right. So anybody on the conference call got any questions? Okay, guess not. All right, so anybody on here now with us have any questions? Anybody, in the viewing audience have any questions? Okay. All right, so any more questions? You gotta wait 2 minutes for Facebook. We gotta catch up. All right, so that's it. Akim and Akwathian. Now remember, take a picture of this, screenshot, whatever. This is showing you the circuit of years, right? The circuit. This a circuits?
Circuit.
Plural or singular? Make sure.
Circuits.
Okay, circuits. Okay. I mean, they're running around and running. It's something that happens continually. It's consistent, and there's more than one pattern. Because I'm only showing you a circuit. All right, one of the patterns that we see. There's other circuits also. You got circuits with the where before you go into the first constellation, you have like Pleiades. You it's very hard to see in the morning because the sun is rising in the east, and then the Pleiades is setting low in the horizon. So as it comes up, you can't really you can see it sometimes, but sometimes just research that. Research Pleiades in the spring, right? Research Pleiades in the spring, and then you got things with Arcturus. All right, you got things with Arcturus. You got things with what they call Orion's belt. All right, so you got all these different things happening, relative to time. You have all these things, that are happening relative to the years that show, okay, we're about to begin and end a different year. All right. So that's all we got for today. May the Most High be with you. Yabarakakam Yahweh, Bashem Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Yahweh bless you. And then Yahweh Shai. Shalom Lakam. Shema Yasha Allah Yahweh Allah Haynawa Yahweh Akkad. Right? Shalom Lakam. Everybody got this? Everybody understand this? You guys